Ladies and gentlemen, are your emotions running your life? Do you find yourself reacting instead of responding, angry, anxious, or overwhelmed before you even realize it? In today's world, where stress is everywhere and peace feels distant, there's one inner shift that changes everything. When your mind becomes stronger than your emotions, that's the moment you stop surviving and start living. That's what we're going to unlock together today. There comes a time in every life when we must choose what guides us, the fleeting waves of emotion or the steady current of conscious thought. Our thoughts can elevate us or imprison us, but when we strengthen the mind, when we begin to master the inner terrain, something extraordinary happens. We become the creators of our reality, not the captives of our moods. This journey is not about suppressing emotions, but transcending them, guiding them rather than being guided by them. There's a quiet war happening inside every one of us. It's not the battle the world sees. It's not about money, power, or fame. It's the battle between the mind and the emotions. And it's in this invisible arena that the outcome of our life is decided. How many times have you said something in anger only to regret it minutes later? How often have you made choices from fear only to discover you were never in danger to begin with? These are not random mistakes. They are signs that your emotions have been steering the wheel while your mind sat in the passenger seat. But you were never meant to be led by fleeting storms. You were meant to be guided by an inner compass. That compass is your conscious awareness, your mind when it is still, centered, and strong. Not hard and forceful, but deeply anchored. A strong mind doesn't fight emotions. It simply refuses to be ruled by them. There is a profound difference between listening to your emotions and being led by them. Emotions were never meant to be your masters. They are messengers, fleeting, temporary, often reactionary energies that carry information, not instruction. Yet, so many of us allow our lives to be dictated by these ever-changing emotional states. We confuse feeling something with needing to act on it. And in doing so, we often create more pain, more chaos, more unnecessary complication than life ever intended for us. A strong mind knows how to listen without obeying. It recognizes the emotional signals without surrendering to them. Anger is not a green light to speak hurtfully. Fear is not a signal to retreat from growth. Sadness does not mean you must isolate. These emotions come to show you something about what's happening inside, but they are not meant to command your next move. The moment your mind becomes aware of this is the moment you reclaim your power from emotional tyranny. Think of emotions like passing weather. Some days are stormy, others bright, but the sky, the space that holds it all, remains unchanged. You are that sky, and emotions are the clouds moving through. You don't become the cloud, you simply observe its presence. The mind, when strong, steps back and watches. It sees the storm, but does not lose itself in it. This separation between the self and the emotion is the key to inner mastery. You can feel without becoming. You can acknowledge without obeying. A child may cry when they don't get what they want. That's natural. But if the parent starts crying too, who will guide the moment? Emotions are that inner child. They express unmet needs, fears, longings, but they're not the decision maker. The mind must parent the emotion. It must sit beside the anger and ask why it's there. It must comfort the sadness without drowning in it. It must notice the anxiety and hold space for it without letting it steer the ship. When we don't understand that emotions are messengers, we mistake them for truth. But emotions are not facts. They are experiences. They are responses to perception. And perception itself is shaped by memory, by belief, by expectation. A strong mind knows that what you feel in a moment is not always what is real. The mind observes with curiosity, not judgment. It asks, is this emotion telling me something I need to address, or is it simply an old pattern resurfacing? Much of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from our emotional reaction to what happens. We play stories in our minds about what it means, what it says about us, what it might lead to. The emotion comes, then the story comes, then the reaction, and before we know it, we are trapped in a cycle. But when the mind is strong, it steps in early. It sees the emotion arise and pauses. It breathes. It says, I see you. You are valid, but you are not in charge. Even in moments of intense emotional pain, the mind can be a refuge. When grief surges, the mind doesn't silence it. It allows the wave to come and go, knowing it will pass. When jealousy appears, the mind doesn't shame it. It examines its roots, perhaps in insecurity or unmet desire. When frustration builds, the mind doesn't lash out. It finds the deeper reason beneath the surface. That's what makes it strong. Not that it avoids emotion, but that it meets it fully and still chooses its response. If your mind is weak, emotions will run wild. One comment from someone can ruin your entire day. One delay can create panic. One rejection can spiral into self-doubt. But when the mind is fortified, it becomes the filter through which emotions pass. It does not ignore them. It understands them. It does not suppress them. It processes them. That distinction is everything. You are not here to eliminate emotion. You are here to lead it. A strong mind builds emotional fluency. It begins to recognize the subtle signals, tightness in the chest, shallowness of breath, a racing thought. It notices the body's reaction before the outburst ever happens. This awareness is not accidental. It is cultivated through mindfulness, journaling, reflection, or silence. The mind begins to observe itself. And this self-observation becomes the foundation of emotional mastery. Because the more aware you are of what you're feeling, the less likely you are to be hijacked by it. Emotions are information. Anger can show you your boundaries. Fear can show you where you're growing. Sadness can reveal what matters to you. But none of these were meant to take the wheel. They are the signals, not the path. The strong mind sees them, hears them, honors them, but chooses the path ahead based on clarity, not confusion. The moment your mind stands above your emotion, not by suppressing it, but by understanding it, that's the moment you begin to master your inner world. That's the moment you stop reacting and start responding. That's the moment life changes from the inside out. In the rush of modern life, we often believe clarity will come from doing more, thinking harder, pushing further. But clarity isn't born out of noise. It rises from stillness. The strongest minds are not the loudest. They're not constantly spinning with thoughts or filled with opinions on everything. The strongest minds are deeply quiet, rooted in presence, and at home within themselves. Stillness isn't the absence of thought. It is the awareness of thought. It's the conscious space between the noise. It's where wisdom lives. Mental clarity does not come from endlessly analyzing your problems or obsessively controlling outcomes. It comes when you quiet the noise long enough to see what is actually there. Most people are so lost in thought that they mistake their thoughts for truth. They live in mental projections of the future or replays of the past, never truly present. In that mental turbulence, emotions get louder, reactions more impulsive, and decisions more clouded. But when you step into stillness, you begin to separate what is real from what is imagined. You no longer live by emotional momentum. You live by conscious choice. Stillness is not something reserved for monks or sages. It's available to anyone willing to pause, to sit, to breathe, to observe. When you are still, you are not disengaged from life. You're fully tuned in. You hear more. You feel more. You become aware of the thoughts you usually miss. You recognize the subtle patterns of your inner dialogue. You begin to see how quickly the mind attaches to a fear or how habitually it judges. And this awareness gives you power, not to control everything, but to no longer be controlled by it. A mind that seeks constant distraction, stimulation, or noise is a mind running from itself. But when you turn inward, when you invite silence, you begin to meet yourself honestly. You come face to face with your emotions, your fears, your desires, and your conditioning. It can be uncomfortable at first, but it's through this honest seeing that transformation begins. Clarity doesn't arrive when you avoid your mind. It arrives when you listen to it with presence and non-judgment. When you become still, you begin to realize how much of your emotional turmoil is not about what's happening now, but about what your mind is saying about what's happening. The event is rarely the problem. It's the interpretation, the story, the belief behind it. Stillness allows you to see the story for what it is. It creates distance between you and the narrative. In that space, there is choice. You can decide whether that story is true, whether it serves you, whether you want to keep it. That is clarity. That is freedom. The noise of the world tells us that movement is progress, that more is better, that we must always be reacting, always be achieving, always be proving. But the truth is, the greatest insights, the deepest peace, and the clearest direction often come when we stop. When we sit with ourselves and allow everything to settle, just as muddy water clears when left undisturbed, the mind clarifies in the presence of stillness. The more still you become, the more clearly you see. And what you see can change everything. The strong mind does not rush to react. It pauses. It listens. It reflects. It makes space. In that space, your emotional energy can soften. Your reactive impulses can slow. Your inner wisdom can rise. This is not a weakness. It is mastery. It's easy to be loud, quick, reactive. It takes strength to be silent, deliberate, grounded. In silence, there is depth. In depth, there is understanding. And in understanding, there is the power to respond from truth, not tension. Clarity is not found in trying to figure everything out right now. It is found in allowing what's inside you to come into light. When you make stillness a practice, not as an escape, but as a foundation, you begin to relate to life differently. You don't get swept away by every wave of emotion or lost in every storm of thought. You observe, you witness, you remain anchored. That's what gives your mind its strength, not from force, but from calm, not from control, control, but from presence. We live in a world addicted to urgency, but urgency is the enemy of clarity. When everything feels urgent, you lose perspective. You confuse importance with immediacy. You make decisions from pressure rather than purpose. Stillness rewires that pattern. It teaches you that not every thought needs attention, not every feeling needs a reaction, and not every situation requires your immediate involvement. You begin to see with greater discernment what truly matters. You begin to see with greater discernment what truly matters. You begin to act from alignment rather than impulse. The disciplined mind makes space for stillness, not because it wants to escape emotion, but because it wants to understand it. When you are still, you can hold space for your emotions without being consumed by them. You can recognize a reaction rising within you and still choose how you want to engage. You become the observer, not the reactor. And this observation is not cold or detached. It's warm, compassionate, wise. It allows you to be fully human while still fully awake. Mental clarity is not about having all the answers. It's about creating the inner space where the right questions can arise. It's about learning to be with yourself without distraction. It's about seeing clearly so that your actions reflect truth, not turmoil. A strong mind is not frantic. It is focused, not rigid. It is resilient. It bends with life but never breaks under pressure because it has learned the power of stillness. Stillness is not something you find outside. It is something you awaken within. And once it's awakened, it becomes your guiding light through even the most turbulent storms. Freedom is a word we often associate with doing what we want, when we want, without restriction. But true inner freedom is not about indulging every desire or reacting to every emotion. It's not about being pulled in 100 different directions by what feels good in the moment. True freedom is the ability to choose your response, to act from awareness rather than reaction, to move in alignment with your deeper purpose rather than momentary pleasure. And that kind of freedom only comes through discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It's not rigidity. It's not about denying yourself joy or suppressing emotions. Discipline is the ability to hold space between feeling and action. It's the strength to pause when every part of you wants to react. It's the power to stay grounded when your emotions rise like a storm. When you're disciplined, you don't lose yourself in anger, fear, or anxiety. You acknowledge those emotions, but you don't let them dictate your choices. Discipline gives you the power to act in accordance with your values, not your urges. Impulse is fast, emotional, and often disconnected from long-term truth. Impulse acts without thinking. It wants relief now, gratification now, escape now. But most of what impulse brings is temporary. It solves nothing in the long run. It creates cycles of regret, guilt, confusion. It leads you in circles, always reacting, always chasing, never settling. But discipline interrupts that cycle. It says, pause, feel this fully. Choose with intention, and that choice is what separates chaos from clarity, reaction from response, emotion from wisdom. Inner freedom is not the absence of rules, it's the presence of self-leadership. It means you're not a slave to your habits or your moods. You're not constantly driven by what's easiest or most comfortable. Instead, you make decisions based on who you are becoming, not what you're feeling. That's what discipline offers you. It's a structure that creates space for your highest self to emerge. Without discipline, the strongest parts of you remain buried beneath emotional noise and reactive patterns. We often avoid discipline because we associate it with restriction, with something external trying to control us. But discipline, when it comes from within, is the most powerful form of freedom. It's not about being told what to do. It's about deciding what truly matters to you and living in alignment with that decision. It's choosing not to follow every emotional impulse because you understand the cost of doing so. It's recognizing that your future is shaped by your choices, not your feelings. This kind of discipline isn't loud or forceful. It's quiet and consistent. It shows up in the moments no one sees, in the choice to breathe before responding, to speak with intention instead of lashing out, to sit with discomfort rather than run from it. It's in the discipline of daily stillness, of self-reflection, of choosing truth over ego, peace over drama, growth over comfort. These choices add up. Over time, they shape a life that is not ruled by emotional highs and lows, but by steady presence and deep clarity. Impulse wants to fix the surface. It wants to soothe, to numb, to distract. But discipline goes deeper. It says, what am I really feeling? What am I avoiding? What is this emotion trying to teach me? And in that inquiry, healing begins. You stop needing to escape your emotions because you've built the inner strength to hold them. You stop fearing discomfort because you know it won't break you. You become solid within yourself. And from that place, nothing can truly shake you. Discipline doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. It means not surrendering to them blindly. It means honoring what you feel, but still choosing what serves your growth. When you build that kind of discipline, you no longer chase freedom. You embody it. You don't need your circumstances to change to feel peace, because peace comes from your own choices. You stop waiting for life to feel easier because your mind has become stronger. Discipline is the bridge between emotion and clarity, between chaos and peace. Every time you choose presence over reaction, you build that bridge. Every time you respond with awareness instead of impulse, you reinforce it. And eventually that discipline becomes part of who you are. Not something you force, but something you live. It becomes the quiet strength that moves through you, that holds you steady, that leads you through uncertainty with grace. It becomes your anchor, not because life gets easier, but because you become unshakable in how you move through it. Discipline frees you not from emotion, but from emotional slavery. It doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty, consistency, and a willingness to return to yourself again and again. You begin to see that every moment of pause, every breath taken before action, every intentional decision is an act of self-respect. And in that self-respect, you find a freedom deeper than anything the world can offer. Not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of self-mastery. Not the freedom of indulging every urge, but the freedom of knowing that you are more than your impulses. You are the one who chooses. You are the one who leads. There's a beautiful wisdom in the heart, but without the guidance of a centered mind, that wisdom can get lost in the noise of emotional extremes. Emotions are powerful: love, sadness, fear, hope, joy. They color our lives and give it meaning. But power without direction can become destructive. Just as fire can warm or burn, emotions can uplift or consume. The heart is deep, it feels everything, but it is not meant to navigate alone. The mind, when steady and strong, becomes the compass that helps the heart move with grace rather than chaos. The mind trains the heart, not to silence it, but to refine it. Too often we believe that following the heart means abandoning logic or thought, but the heart that is ungrounded can easily be pulled into illusion. Love without boundaries can become attachment. Passion without purpose can become recklessness. Sadness without perspective can spiral into despair. The heart must feel freely, yes, but it must feel within the context of a higher awareness. That awareness lives in the mind that has been strengthened through stillness, clarity, and discipline. A weak mind will be overwhelmed by the heart's waves, but a strong mind becomes the container in which those waves can move without flooding your life. A trained mind does not suppress the heart. It listens deeply. It observes. It allows the heart to speak, and then it asks the necessary questions. Is this feeling based in truth or fear? Is this emotion taking me toward growth or pulling me into old wounds? Does this desire come from alignment or from lack? These are not the questions of someone trying to overanalyze emotion. They are the reflections of someone who honors emotion enough to understand it. The mind creates the space where the heart can be felt fully, honestly, and wisely. Without the mind's guidance, the heart can misinterpret pain as truth. It can take rejection as a reflection of worth. It can mistake temporary affection for deep connection. The heart sees through emotion. The mind sees through awareness. When the two are in balance, life becomes aligned. The heart brings color, texture, meaning. The mind brings depth, context, direction. Together, they allow you to live fully and wisely, to feel deeply without getting lost in what you feel. The untrained mind chases feeling. It wants to feel good, and it avoids anything that feels hard. But when you only seek feeling, you often bypass growth. You move from one emotional high to another, never settling long enough to understand what lies beneath the surface. But a strong mind slows down. It asks, what is the heart trying to teach me here? And in doing so, it allows the heart to evolve. Emotional maturity is not about feeling less. It's about feeling with insight. And that insight is born through the mind. Many people live with their heart in the driver's seat and their mind in the back seat. They fall in love quickly and break just as fast. They get inspired and burned out within days. They feel deeply but don't understand why. They get overwhelmed and call it sensitivity, never realizing that they're missing the grounding force of a focused, observing mind. When your mind begins to guide your emotional energy, you begin to experience a new kind of peace. A peace that doesn't require constant external validation. A peace that isn't shaken by every wave of feeling. A peace that comes from knowing you can trust yourself to respond, not just react. It's not about turning the heart off, it's about teaching it how to breathe. The mind teaches the heart that not every feeling needs to be followed, that not every desire is meant to be fulfilled. It teaches patience, discernment, compassion, and self-respect. And the heart, in return, teaches the mind how to remain human, how to stay open, how to embrace vulnerability without becoming weak. This relationship is not one of domination, it's one of harmony. The mind does not control the heart, it guides it. The mind doesn't silence the heart, it translates it, helping it express truth without being tangled in confusion. When the mind is strong, the heart feels safer. It knows it can open without being hurt every time. It knows it can trust the process of life without needing immediate emotional resolution. The heart doesn't have to scream when the mind is present, it whispers, and the mind listens. Together, they create a life that is both deeply felt and wisely lived. A life where emotional experience is honored, but not idolized. Where emotions are integrated, not worshipped. Where you can cry, love, grieve, rejoice, and still remain anchored in yourself. So often, we are told to lead with our heart, but when the heart is wounded, it leads from pain. When it's insecure, it seeks validation. When it's lonely, it grabs at connection. These emotional reactions are understandable, but without a strong mind, they become patterns that repeat. The mind holds space for the heart to heal before it acts. It says, feel everything, but act from your center. This guidance isn't cold or distant. It's deeply compassionate. It allows you to feel everything without being consumed by it. A strong mind knows that emotions come in waves, and it knows how to ride them without losing balance. It doesn't resist the emotion, but it doesn't hand over control either. It doesn't diminish the heart's message, but it helps deliver that message with clarity. This is the kind of inner leadership that transforms lives, not by avoiding emotion, but by guiding it, not by escaping feeling, but by illuminating it, not by disconnecting from the heart, but by building a bridge of understanding between thought and feeling, between impulse and intention, between reaction and wisdom. The greatest victories in life are not measured by what we gain in the outer world, but by what we master within ourselves. When your mind becomes stronger than your emotions, you begin to live from a place of presence, not pressure. You begin to respond rather than react, to choose rather than chase, to observe rather than obey every emotional impulse. You understand that emotions are not enemies, they are signals. But without a clear, disciplined, and still mind, those signals can turn into storms that sweep away your peace, your purpose, and your power. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you feel less. It means you feel everything more clearly, more consciously. It means you create the space between feeling and action, between thought and behavior. And in that space, you make choices that are aligned with who you truly are, not who your fear, anger, or sadness momentarily tell you to be. You stop living by default and start living by design. Your inner world no longer pulls you in 100 directions. It becomes a steady compass pointing toward growth, truth, and freedom. And this transformation begins not in grand gestures, but in subtle shifts, in the pause before a reaction, in the breath you take before speaking, in the quiet commitment to stillness, discipline, and reflection. Over time, these small acts forge a powerful inner foundation. They build a mind that no longer gets lost in waves of emotion, but learns to ride them with strength and clarity. They build a heart that can feel deeply, but is no longer wounded by every passing moment. When your mind is still, your path becomes clear. When your mind is disciplined, your heart becomes free. And when your mind is stronger than your emotions, you no longer live as a prisoner of your moods, you live as the master of your life.